Synchronicities are an incredibly interesting set of events that can have us begin to question our understanding of cause and effect. Some have thought that the ability of synchronicities to put us face to face with what could be called high strangeness makes synchronicities a valid way to study the boundaries of our current awareness. Carl Jung was the first to introduce the concept of synchronicity, and he defined it as a causal connecting principle of meaningful coincidence. So synchronicity then is an event, a happening, that takes place within the length of the unfoldment of our lives. And this happening seems to be such a weird coincidence of things, that it seems to go far beyond our understanding of the cause and effect principle, and yet it still has great meaning to us in a psychological or subjective way. What is most interesting about this phenomenon, I suppose, is its ability to show us that life is not just a random happening, but an interconnected whole, and that the human consciousness does indeed affect reality. When the possibility of coincidence becomes so pronounced that it becomes impossible to ignore it, we are confronted with the very, very real possibility that our lives are not just haphazard chance, and at that moment we begin to confront a seemingly external force that may well be responsible for the course of our lives. There is actually a point that some have called chapel perilous, where we seem to hit a kind of wall, or perhaps it is best to describe it as a line in the sand that when crossed, puts us in a different place, a different state of existence. This new state of existence, this chapel perilous, is a morbidly curious place closely akin to a type of insanity. Indeed, it is in this place where we confront our own rational mind, and the quite real possibility that we may have gone insane. You see, once discovered and examined, synchronicity, that is synchronistic events of all sorts, can grow to such a degree that we humans, who are for the most part used to thinking that we do not need to take any great responsibility for life and our fate, begin to confront the possibility that we may not be as free as we once supposed. We begin to face a new type of existence, where our own minds may be affecting the world we experience, and the far scarier possibility that external forces, that we may not have been aware of before, may be using this synchronistic principle to control and direct our lives as well. This external force that presents itself in the form of synchronicity, because of our need to label, to compartmentalize, and to classify, must have a name, a reason, and a purpose. And so we have a resurgence within the psyche, by those that have accidentally or bravely been confronted by the shocking effects of synchronicity, to make this force more human by calling it God, the gods, angels, demons, fairies, aliens, or whatever. But such labeling is of no long-lasting help when we wake up from all of this orderly separation and classification, and finally truly realize that there is an immense power just beyond the physical and mechanistic world, that can, and has, been affecting the course of our lives, since our birth into this world. At that point where we find ourselves needing to make a choice as to whether to cross that line in the sand, we face that barrier referred to as chapel perilous. I liken this barrier to an event horizon of sorts, a point in space and time, a point within the never-ending unfoldment of the psyche, where we are presented with a choice to either go on, or turn back. And if we do cross that line, it becomes impossible to go back to the existence we had before. A line that once crossed, will not allow us to retreat, to take a step back and run from the impending abyss that is before us. Most will not cross this line. Most, if smart, will throw their hands in the air, turn around and walk the other way. Those who have made the choice to turn around and walk away, will try to do the only possible rational thing, and that is to try to ignore this force, long enough for it to once again begin to ignore them. This is a sound course of action actually, and it can be one of the best ways to quell the power of this outer force, that is threatening to drive the seeker insane should they continue on this course. The sad aspect of it, at least for me, is that these seekers usually walk away completely. They leave, never to return to the quest. Having seen a little of that abyss that confronts those brave or crazy enough to go deep into the mysteries, they satisfy themselves with the small glance that they were afforded, and they conclude that this is as far as they are willing to go. They then may even rationalize what they have experienced, labeling it all as silly coincidence and mental delusion. Further, some may even begin to actively try to ridicule and fight against any that dare continue on the road that they failed to stick to. The success of those few others, after all, can only further shame their self-importance, and have these people that walked away face the lurking fear that they had previously run from. There are a very few though that face this power, this synchronistic event horizon. They may not cross the line completely, but they are at least willing to face the reality of its existence. These people's lives will change forever. Some may begin to believe in God, or the gods. Some may discover or establish a new religion. They will either drop from the face of the world to become a holy person, or start a new following as a charismatic preacher. Such people can become quite powerful, and these new belief systems can grow quite large. The reason for this, I feel, is that those that have seen this edge of the abyss can grow quite strong. Confronted with the powerful gravitational forces at the very edge of this chasm, they have grown in power to some extent. They have grown in power thanks to the sheer force of will needed to withstand just a glimpse of this new world-changing reality presented to them through the window of synchronicity. What synchronicity is and how it works in our lives can be a difficult thing to grasp at first. For me, it took the experience of it in a real-world sense, where I was the one doing something to create these synchronistic events consciously. As such, the book that in my opinion is the best at describing, truly describing, what synchronicity is the book Manifest Wealth and Prosperity with Thought Forms and Servitors. And I do feel that this fundamental understanding is important, if a person is going to have any possibility of confronting, and even controlling this power when it comes knocking. I will leave a link to it in the description below.